Welcome back to ZNGP Today. MotoGP's medical director Dr. Ángel Charte has cast serious doubt on the possibility of Marc Márquez returning to competition before the end of the season, following the world champion's recent shoulder surgery. Márquez sustained the injury in a first-lap collision with Aprilia's Marco Bezzecchi at the Indonesian Grand Prix, a crash that forced him to withdraw immediately and triggered concerns about his fitness for the remaining rounds. Ducati has officially confirmed that test rider Michele Pirro will continue to substitute for Marc Márquez at next weekend's Malaysian Grand Prix in Sepang, as the reigning world champion remains sidelined with a shoulder injury. Pecco Bagnaia arrives at Phillip Island with quiet determination and a hint of apprehension. The double MotoGP world champion has seen his 2025 season swing violently between triumph and turmoil. A glorious win at MotoGP followed by disaster in Indonesia. Now, on the fast, unpredictable asphalt of Australia's coastal circuit, Bagnaia admits his only wish is simple: that the nightmare of Mandalika doesn't repeat itself. The 2025 Australian Grand Prix opened with local favourite Jack Miller giving fans a reason to cheer, topping the FP1 session at Phillip Island after a dramatic late surge on fresh tyres. Miller's final push edged Alex Marquez by just 0.036s, setting an emotional tone for his home weekend. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Initially, Ducati and Marquez's camp hoped the injury could be managed without surgery. However, after days of limited improvement, further medical checks at Madrid's Clínica Ruber Internacional revealed that the fracture and ligament damage in his right shoulder were unstable. Under the supervision of Dr. Roger de Ona, Marquez underwent a corrective operation earlier this week. Speaking with Spain's DAZN at Phillip Island, Dr. Charte emphasized that the recovery will take time and patience if the injury is to heal fully and avoid lasting complications. Last week, during a checkup in Madrid, Dr. de Ona and his team decided that the injury was unstable and needed to be fixed more securely. Marc has already undergone surgery, was discharged after 24 hours, and has now begun a period of rest. When the doctors deem it appropriate, he'll start rehabilitation. But a return in Portugal will be quite complicated because this type of injury must be treated carefully. Marquez has already been ruled out of this weekend's Australian Grand Prix and next week's Malaysian round, with Dr. Charte now suggesting that a comeback for the Portuguese GP in early November is unlikely. Ducati's test rider Michele Pirro will continue to stand in for the 8-time world champion at least through Sepang, while the Bologna manufacturer evaluates replacement options for the remaining races. Adding to the cautious outlook, leading orthopedic surgeon Dr. Pedro Luis Ripoll told Spain's Marca earlier this week that Marquez faces a 16-week recovery period, effectively ruling him out until after the season-ending Valencia Grand Prix. That timeline extends well beyond the remaining schedule, making any premature return nearly impossible. With the 2025 title already mathematically secured, Marquez has little motivation to risk another setback. The Spaniard himself has insisted he'll take a smarter and slower approach to recovery this time, remembering the severe complications from his rushed comeback in 2020 following an arm fracture. At this stage, it also remains uncertain whether Marquez will participate in the post-race Valencia test, a key event for Ducati's 2026 preparations. Team sources indicate the final decision will depend entirely on medical approval closer to the date. Meanwhile, Marco Bezzecchi, whose move triggered the Mandalika crash, has been handed a double long lap penalty for his part in the incident. While fans may have hoped for one last appearance from the reigning champion before the curtain closes on 2025, medical experts agree that Valencia is the earliest realistic return point. Ducati, for its part, remains focused on ensuring Marquez's complete recovery rather than rushing him back to the grid. Speaking during MotoGP's opening practice session at Phillip Island, Ducati's sporting director Mauro Grassilli provided an update on Marquez's recovery but stopped short of setting a specific return date. "We don't know. We have daily contact with Marc's management, but we're not sure," Grassilli told Dorna's Jack Appleyard. "But I can confirm that Michele Pirro will be in Malaysia for the next race." "When will we see Marc?" "Maybe we'll have more information in the next few days." Pirro, Ducati's long-serving development rider, was initially scheduled to fill in only for the Australian GP, but the decision to keep him for Sepang comes as Marquez's condition continues to require careful management. The Spaniard underwent shoulder surgery last week after a collision with Marco Bezzecchi on the opening lap of the Indonesian Grand Prix left him with a fracture and ligament damage to his right shoulder. While initial scans suggested surgery might be avoidable, the decision was later reversed after doctors determined the injury was not healing properly. Marquez underwent a successful operation in Madrid and has since begun a period of recovery, though MotoGP's medical director Dr. Ángel Charte recently ruled out any realistic chance of a return before the season finale in Valencia. With Marquez out for both Australia and Malaysia, and now highly doubtful for Portimao, Ducati faces a continued question over who might ride the factory Desmosedici in the final rounds. The Bologna team has several potential stand-ins, including World SBK title contender Nicolo Bilega, whose season concludes this weekend at Jerez, keeping the door open for a possible MotoGP cameo before year's end. Doctors not directly involved in Marquez's case have estimated a 16-week recovery period, which would extend beyond the end of the current season. While the 8-time world champion has expressed a desire to return before Valencia, he has also made it clear that he won't risk aggravating the injury, remembering the costly mistake of his rushed comeback in 2020. Meanwhile, Aprilia has confirmed that Jorge Martin will also miss the Malaysian Grand Prix. The outgoing champion fractured his collarbone in a collision with Bezzecchi during the Motegi sprint, marking another setback in what has been a bruising campaign. With Martin, Marquez, and Maverick Vinales all sidelined, the Sepang grid will feature a trio of test riders: Pirro for Ducati, Lorenzo Savdori for Aprilia, and Pol Espargaro for KTM. As the 2025 MotoGP season enters its final stretch, Ducati's focus is firmly on ensuring Marquez's complete recovery, while the championship braces for another unpredictable weekend in Malaysia. Just 2 weeks ago, Bagnaia seemed to have rediscovered his magic touch. His victory in Japan came after Ducati fitted his GP25 with several GP24 components, notably, the old ride height device that restored balance and confidence to his front end. But any sense of stability vanished in Indonesia, where he finished the sprint race almost 30 seconds adrift and crashed out of the main race from last position. "It's a good track, always been competitive here. Not the easiest for me, but the last 3 seasons we were able to finish on the podium." The Italian's tone may be calm, but behind it lies frustration. Phillip Island has long been one of his stronger circuits, yet Bagnaia's confidence has become as changeable as the weather that often sweeps across the Bass Strait. "The objective is to be on the podium. We have to understand the situation with the weather because it looks quite windy. I really hope to find the same feeling as Motegi so I can fight for it. If not, if it will be like in Mandalika, it will be a tough weekend." It's a striking contrast from the defiant Bagnaia of previous seasons. This is a rider humbled by inconsistency, one who now talks of hope more than certainty. Ducati's engineers may have the fastest spike on the grid, but Bagnaia's words suggest a deeper unease, that sometimes even champions are at the mercy of their machinery. While most riders evaluate their performance over multiple sessions, Bagnaia insists he'll know within moments how the weekend will unfold. "When will I know what kind of weekend we'll have?" Out of FP1, the first lap. It's a candid admission from a rider who's learned to read every vibration and slide of the GP25. One lap, one corner, one feeling, that's all it takes to know whether he's fighting for the podium or just for survival. It's a glimpse into the delicate balance between trust and tension that defines the modern Ducati. Bagnaia finally broke his silence on the Mandalika crash, one that mirrored his struggles in Misano and Silverstone earlier this year. Unluckily, this season when the bike isn't working, like in Mandalika, Misano, or Silverstone, the bike pushes a lot. The inertia pushes, and you need to force more on the steering, and you just lose it. Yet amid the uncertainty, there's also opportunity. A strong performance could reset Bagnaia's momentum and silence whispers that he's lost faith in the GP25 project. For a champion whose strength lies in precision and rhythm, Australia may be the ideal place to rebuild both. Pecco Bagnaia's story this season is no longer about defending a title, it's about defending belief. At Phillip Island, he isn't chasing records or revenge, he's chasing balance. One lap in FP1 could define his entire weekend, maybe even the tone of his final races this year. And as he puts it himself, he's just hoping that this time, the Ducati beneath him remembers who's in control. Miller, who saved his new rubber for the closing minutes, climbed from the mid-pack to the top spot, while Marquez, chasing second place in the World Championship behind his absent brother Marc Márquez, impressed early, maintaining strong pace on a used medium rear. The Gresini rider narrowly escaped a frightening brush with Miguel Oliveira at turn 1, clipping the Aprilia's rear wheel at over 300 km per hour. Race Direction investigated the incident but took no further action. Behind them, Pedro Acosta, KTM, Fermin Aldeguer, Gresini, and Fabio Quartararo, Yamaha, were the fastest of those who stayed on the same tires all session, a soft front and medium rear. Marco Bezzecchi, still shadowed by controversy after his collision with Marc Márquez in Mandalika, led the times early for Aprilia before finishing 6th, testing a new soft front in his final stint. He'll face a double long lap penalty in Sunday's race. Bagnaia fights through frustration. It was a tense morning for Francesco Bagnaia, who endured a shaky start, literally. The reigning Ducati factory rider was visibly angry after reporting violent front-end vibrations on his GP25, pulling into the pits just minutes into the session. His frustration boiled over after a second run, with Davide Tardazzi seen turning away in irritation as the issue persisted. Despite the rocky beginning, Bagnaia eventually found rhythm. Running on medium compounds, the only rider besides Tech 3's Pol Espargaro to do so, the Italian built confidence through the session, improving his pace to finish 7th, plus 0.275 s, without changing tires. It was a small but crucial recovery for a rider desperate to stabilize Ducati's race weekends after recent inconsistency. Johann Zarco emerged as the top Honda in 8th, completing the session on a single set of tires. There were worrying scenes at Honda HRC, though, when Joan Mir was forced to pull off track with smoke rising from the upper exhaust of his RC213B, another mechanical setback in a troubled season for the Japanese manufacturer. Strong early form across the field. Fabio Di Gianantonio, VR46, and Brad Binder, KTM, completed the top 10, while Raul Fernandez, Trackhouse Aprilia, was next best after Miller to try a full fresh tire combination, ending in 11th. Notably, not a single rider ran the hard front tire, despite it being the dominant choice in both of last year's Phillip Island races. Franco Morbidelli suffered the first crash of the weekend, losing the front at turn 1, though he escaped unharmed. As FP1 concluded, Phillip Island delivered the kind of mix MotoGP fans expect: home glory, drama, and Ducati turbulence. With qualifying entry stakes on the line in Friday practice 2 at 3 p.m. local time, all eyes will be on whether Miller can keep Australia's momentum alive, and whether Bagnaia's Ducati gremlins return to haunt him. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!